Hi, everyone. Today I'm joined by my acting business coach, Anastasia Edwards. She's really awesome. She's so knowledgeable. She is a Russian American SAG actress, and she could probably talk for hours and hours and hours. And she does in our coaching sessions, which is like a game changer for me, has been so far. But today you'll see our conversation just scraping the surface of some of the things that she would be able to talk to you about, some industry insight, all that kind of thing. My cat Lulu does come in. My mom's cat, actually. I'm cat sitting. So sorry about that. I'm linking everything for Anna below. I highly recommend working with her, or if nothing else, doing the complimentary session. You can see her reel. I'm linking both her acting website as well as her coaching website. Numerous friends of mine have coached with her since I started working with her, and knowledge is power. Information, as we'll talk about, is potential power, and it's just the beginning. So I hope you enjoy. Hi, Anna.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. I'm so excited. I've really been looking forward to talking to you and bringing this information to our community. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here and I'll give you everything I've got. So ask away.
Excellent. Well, would you mind giving us a brief introduction to who you are, how you got started, and what you do?
Sure. So I am a SAG Russian American actress. I primarily work in film and television. I'm not going to go into my lengthy resume. I'm sure you're going to announce it, but I'm also a career coach for actors. So I help actors take control of the business side of acting and start working professionally. I'm also a boy mama. My little boy is 2.5 now. He's growing so fast. I'm a wifey, and I'm also an advocate for DIPG cancer awareness. I am just, the way I started, so I grew up in Russia, St. Petersburg. I was obsessed with ballet. So at a very young age, as you can imagine, I think my mom took me to ballet like every weekend or every month.
Oh,
it was a lot, and I was fascinated. And of course, I wanted to be a ballerina. I had an accident. I think I was 8 or 9, and they kind of pivoted and shifted my pursuit of that. I wouldn't even call it a pursuit, but I did get actually accepted at the academy, but I was way too young. Yeah, but that kind of changed the trajectory of my, career and my life, really, because then I went into musical theater. I was a very active kid. Like, my mom was just going nuts. Like, she didn't know what to do with me. I was like singing, dancing everywhere.
wow.
So, I was a very extroverted kid and like in my own world. I think it's a very like a traditional, actor story usually, but so I started musical theater, and we would travel tour outside of the US, outside of the Russia and in Russia. And it was kind of like a no-brainer after I graduated high school of what I was going to pursue. It's like, well, what else am I good at? Definitely not math. So I was like, okay, I get, and like, because that was my whole life, is, really being on stage. And so I tried the Theater Academy of Dramatic Arts in St. Petersburg, and it's pretty much, I guess, like a Juilliard out here. Like, it's a very serious conservatory program. They were auditioning people for 3 months straight during summer. They had all these masters, they call them. I think there were like 3 or 4 masters, and they would only accept the lucky 12 or 15 students, and they had hundreds of people. And honestly, I was just, I was 17, I think, at the time. At the time, I was already set on moving to the States, and I was just basically trying to convince my mom, like, let's go. And she's like, no, but it was kind of like a challenge. She's like, if you get in, then we'll go. So it was like my test, and so surprisingly, I got accepted, and then, and the story goes from there. I convinced my mom to move. I studied at Theater Academy, and then I've moved to Chicago, to the snowy Chicago. That's the only person we knew in the whole country, and we were going to move to New York, I believe, but then, things were just more comfortable in Chicago. We got used to it, and
more space out there.
Yeah, and it, I'm really glad, like even in terms of the industry that at the time Chicago wasn't as busy as it is now, and it was a perfect market for me to also get started in, versus I think New York could have just eaten me up. I mean, you never know, right? You never know. There's no one path, as we know, but yeah, that's pretty much how I got started.
Brilliant. Wow. And so then you came to the States when you were not even like 18. And then,
Yeah, I turned 19 when I was about to turn 19. So
okay. Okay.
yeah.
And so then you've been doing film and television ever since. And you've been coaching for how long?
I've started coaching only during the pandemic, so it's been 2 years. But I was part of the acting school in Chicago, and I, already then caught the bug on the business side and started doing business seminars for actors. And myself, when I didn't just started doing TV and film immediately, I ran into a bunch of scams when I was starting out at the time. My understanding of English was very poor. My accent was very heavy. Like it took me a while to not only settle in the new culture and language and everything else, but to really understand the industry, because like back in Russia, I was classically trained, but I had primarily musical theater experience. I think I got cast in like one commercial. I think I've done a couple of series, but it was just like there's no structure to the industry in Russia. Like it's like a shit show. I don't know if I can swear here, but
You can. The first time I was on the set actually was in Russia. I realized
really?
the other day, I know somebody who used to work for Mosfilm and in Moscow,
Wow.
and he would take me on these movie sets and TV sets and stuff, and I didn't know anything about it. I had no context for how cool it was that I got to be there.
Oh, for
But
sure.
now I look back and it's like, wow, I'm kind of amazed that I was allowed to be there. But given what you've just said, that makes sense.
Yeah, and in St. Petersburg, it's Film, so it's a little different. I would assume in Moscow they probably maybe have their shit together more, but it's it was comparing to what I like, just even the union part, that takes care of so much for actors, and that doesn't exist there, and there's no structure with representation or any of that, so and a lot of actors are kind of free floating. Without any sort of solid plan. A lot of actors do that here too, but here at least there's a path, if you want to find it.
Yeah. So do you
Yeah.
have any advice for, and I know that the industry is different now than it was, 10 years ago or even
Right.
years ago, but do you have any advice for non-native English speaking actors or even anybody who is native English speaking from another country who's coming here, trying to establish themselves? Any pointers straight off the boat?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like they're different experiences for everybody, right? I think having a support system is crucial. So if you can find the people that you trust, is and stick by them, because the immigrant journey is a really hard one, right? And you always feel like you need to fit, and the idea of fitting in, I think a lot of times, like when I started out with the accent and everything, I wish I really embraced my uniqueness and I wasn't ashamed of it. I actually took ownership of it, because I think, and especially obviously in pursuit of acting, I was trying to be more American and blah, blah, blah. And then when I later realized it's my special sauce, right? Speaking of branding and everything else, that made me who I am. So I would just say, show up who you are proudly, find your peeps, and just know that it's going to be hard for a minute, but you don't need to live the stereotypical immigrant journey of constant struggle. I think if you find the right people and you being you, and I think it depends on I definitely had a lot of pink dreams coming here. And I think, and I was young, obviously, blah, 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 but I feel like just having an understanding that it's not everything's gonna, this is not it is the land of opportunities, but only if you pursue it and take advantage of it. It's not going to just magically happen. I think I was just like, I was, a big dreamer always, but I always felt like, things are just going to click and come together, and I'm going to run into this producer or this and like, if you don't do stuff, it's not going to happen. I mean, I think it's clear for a lot of people, but for me, when I moved here, I think America was such a dream that I thought that things are just going to line up and happen. And that's just obviously not how it is in life and in general everywhere.
Well, I think a lot of people here too, who were born and raised here, have the same idea starting out that it'll just happen for them. And that's why it's such a blessing that you came along and came into my life,
Yeah.
and as well as friends of mine who have started working with you as well.
Yeah, thank you. You've been such a like a support and like seriously, I'm so grateful for you for telling more people about me and me being able to help more people. And I love working with you. It's just such a pleasure. I'm just
Well, you're
really
worth recommending. That's why I tell everybody about you, because
thank you.
just the confidence that I have after starting working with you a few months ago, I had no idea about all of these business things, which I would love for you to talk about specifically each item. Um, I had no idea. And I too was falling into the category of like, well, I guess things happen at some point,
Right.
maybe how, and it was very stressful, I would say, not having a direction, not having clear goals, not, oh my gosh, this cat, Lulu.
Oh, he just wants
So
to join.
sorry. She won't
No,
take
you're
it.
good.
If I lock her up, she'll just meow.
Yeah, no, bring her on.
Oh, come here, you. You're so naughty. So naughty. Um,
Hello. She's
look at her face, right? Look at her. You're so bad. You're so bad. Um, yeah, so I think information is power. And I think that having the
only
ability,
if you apply it though. I think information is potential power, right? Because if a lot I had webinars and seminars and people get pumped and inspired, and then I see them a month later, I'm like, well, what's happening, right? Same, like life gets in the way. So I think it's important that you actually have exactly a mentor and a coach and guidance and accountability, all these other things, so that information actually turns into power. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was like, so
you're absolutely right. And the accountability aspect is something I definitely want to highlight. Ever since I've started working with my accountability partner, who I met virtually through your group coaching.
I'm so glad you took me up on it.
Well, you mentioned it the first time and I was like, yeah, I should probably do that. And then 2 weeks later at the next group coaching, you said it again. And I was like, if I don't message the person I was kind of eyeing for that now, when am I going to do it? So I messaged her and we've had several meetings since, and we set a very clear action step of like, this week, I'm going to, and last week's was like the selfies, for example, taking selfies and all the different outfits that we were proposing per character type that you helped us identify. And I did my shoot on Sunday. I know she did hers on Friday, and we're going to debrief about that. And then we're going to set our next goal. So it's just like
Accountability is huge.
one step at a time. So, gosh, for those in my community who don't know about the business side of things, what would we first tell them about? What's most important to identify or understand first?
Yeah. Well, first off, it's okay that you don't understand, right? It's majority of actors. And, traditionally in acting schools, we're learning how to be a good actor, right? We're learning how to be the best actor we could be in our craft, but we don't know how to be a working actor, which is that puzzle piece between a good actor and a working actor. And I think that puzzle piece most of the time is the business aspect that a lot of actors are missing, because you can be the best actor in the world, right? But if you don't have the right people representing you, if you don't know how to market yourself, if you don't know how to network, if you don't know how to get out there, right, and know what your product is about and all that stuff, you're going to be the best actor in class for the rest of your potential career, right? And it is a business, right? This is a $1 billion industry. I think in the United States, I believe it's $50 billion a year, the film industry, excluding video games, possibly more. So it's a machine, right? So you need to understand how you fit in. I think the first thing that actors should do, outside of obviously training and taking care of the craft, is learning about the market that they're in. Because that would determine their strategy moving forward. So, Ohio or New York or Chicago or LA are all different from one another, right? So they're different in terms of not just volume, but in terms of the types of mediums that are available there for actors to pursue, like commercials versus, blah, 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 the types of shows, right? Because I'm primarily speaking to actors who are pursuing on-camera projects, right?
And everybody that I know as well, and I believe my friends that watch this are all screen-based as well.
Yeah, and it's a screen of it's a diary of a screen actor, so it makes sense. Yes. So you need to study the market. And I am a big believer that before you transition into a bigger market, or if you transition into a bigger market, right, with the self-taping world now, you need to squeeze as much as possible out of your local market. So how can you become competitive in your local market, given the mediums that are available, given the representation? It's like opening up a business, right? I always refer to, you are the CEO, right? You run your own business. And a lot of actors think like, oh, once I have an agent or once I have a manager, they will take care of it. Well, no, they only get a certain percentage, number one, right? You get majority of it. But also, if you let them run it, the business will run you. You will no longer run the business. And there are a lot of agents and managers who and essentially they're just job seekers. They're not there to plan out your whole career. And they have plenty of other actors on their roster. So you're not their sole, you would care about your career more than any other, agent in the world, right? Because it's your career. So stepping into the idea that, first of all, you're the CEO. And so any business, you wouldn't just open up a shop without doing a market research, right? You wouldn't just be like, oh, okay, here it is. You would know what your business is about. You will check out the competitor. You will check out, and a lot of actors get out of an acting school. They're like, okay, here I am. Where are my auditions? I need an agent, right? Without seeing, okay, what does the market offer? Okay, is it primarily commercials? Okay, there are 10 television shows. Okay, there are 5 casting, and getting to know and study the market. That's number one. As you're studying the market, you need to understand then, what are you selling, right? How do you fit in the market? Because again, like, let's say you are a strong comedic actress and you're in New York City. I just recently had a consultation with an actress who was strong in comedy, and that's what she wants to do, and pursuing television and film. And I'm like, well, okay, there are 34 multicam comedies, sitcoms in Los Angeles. There are only 4 in New York. New York is primarily drama. There's obviously a ton of theater actors as well, which are respected in New York market comparing to LA. They only care for credits primarily and union status and all that stuff. And so you have to understand, or let's say if it's a Florida market, which is primarily commercial. So you cannot market yourself as a greedy, darker character actor. You will never work in a Florida market, right? So so once she like keeps pulling your attention. So once you research the market, then you have to get clear on what the heck you're selling and how are you fitting into the market. Once you know that, you need to build a package that really resonates with your brand. What I mean by package is your photos, your videos, your casting sites, and there are other obviously advanced materials that you can add to your package. Because once you sign with representation, let's say you sign with William Morris, I don't know, the top agency in the world, the first thing that they're going to start submitting you and pitching you for projects, and they're going to submit and pitch you with the tools that you're going to give them. So if you're going to give them a shitty 2 photos, general pretty actor headshots, and an industry and a resume that doesn't fit the industry standard, and barely any videos, some videos that are really shitty quality or doesn't represent, they're not going to get you in the door. Even the top agent will not get you in the door, right? Because they cannot realistically pick up the phone and pitch you for every single project, right? And even if they do, they still would request some sort of prove it to me, right? Especially when it comes to, and that's actually, it's not just for beginner actors, it's moving forward as well, because a lot of times I have clients who are auditioning for a lot of guest star and larger roles, and then they're not booking them, but because it comes down to them and another actor who has bigger resume, but also has footage, all that other stuff. That's when it comes into play as well. Unless you're an offer only, meaning that, you don't need to audition anymore, which doesn't happen a ton, right? Especially right away, right? But even then, like Jennifer Aniston, I think there was an indie film, I think it was called Cake, that was posted on Netflix. I think it was on Netflix. It was, I think she played a woman who suffered with chronic pain or something. It was very out of brand film for her, and she had to fight for it. And there's so many actors who had to fight because they're perceived a certain way in the industry, right? Which is okay. This is what we want, is to be perceived so we can start making money, so we can establish ourselves, and we can always then pivot. But even those established actors have to change the decision maker's mind. And a lot of times the way they change it is with some footage or something that proves and shows, right? So the idea of like proving yourself, it doesn't just stop, right? And by proving yourself, I mean like having a toolbox that really representative of your skill set and what you can do, right? So market research, branding, then the package. Once you have the package, once you have the package, you got to put it into test, meaning that you have to develop a networking strategy where you can really expand your resume enough to where it makes sense to bring an agent. It depends what types of representative you're pursuing. Obviously, with commercials, if you have a strong package, you can just get representation before you even start expanding your resume. But if you're targeting a television and film representation, you definitely want to have a resume that's not just like bare and has nothing on it, right? So there are plenty of ways that you can expand your resume on your own. Because remember, again, an agent is not there to jumpstart your acting career. They're there to take it to the next level. If their actors don't book, they can't pay bills the next month. For a lot of actors, this is not a hobby. They don't make money out of it right away, right? So it's expected in the beginning. But for agents, they cannot afford not to make money because then they wouldn't have an agency, right? So that's why they're very picky with who they bring on. And if an agent takes on everybody, then that's a red flag, right? And they're picky who they bring on. And if I was an agent, I want to bring an actor who has a solid package and I know how to sell them so I can start making money, right? We both read Jason Lockhart's book, Get an Agent.
Yeah.
Said, what makes you sign an actor? And he says, dollar signs. If I put you in the market tomorrow, are you going to make me money? How can you make the money if you don't know what you're selling, number one, and you don't have a package that is marketable, right? So, okay, so market research, branding, then you expand your resume, then you want to get an agent. That's a whole other representation strategies. What type of agent is right for you, right? And obviously when it's a bigger market, that's even a bigger question because again, you need to understand based on your brand, who's your target audience, which shows do you belong on, who's casting those shows. And so from there, you know the agencies that you want to target are the ones that are working with the casting directors who are working on the shows that you want to book. I know it's a lot of information, so I'm just trying to kind of go through the right. So there are a lot of steps, but I would just say, and there are more and more and more, but I would just say if you're a beginner actor, you need to do a market research number one and get clarity on branding number two and build your package number three. I would say those are the three first steps that you should take before you even worry about an agent. And once you get an agent, that's just step one. That's where the journey begins because you start getting those opportunities. But that's not where it ends where, oh, okay, my business is taken care of now, right? It's a very lengthy way of going into it. But.
It's so interesting because I feel like getting an agent seems to be the step number one in a lot of people's minds. And that was what it was in my mind as well. Get an agent. Once you have an agent, then things will happen. It's better,
and I have so many actors who come to me who have representation all over and they're not working. And the reason they're not working is because number one, sometimes they're with a crappy agent, or we ask for a submission report and we see 6 submissions. I'm like, well, it's a numbers game. If you've been submitted 6 times, how are you expected to work and to get an audition? So that's number one. And then, but most of it is because they don't know what they're selling. They have a shitty package. I'm like, well, no wonder your agent can get you in the door, right? So it doesn't start with an agent.
I think one of the absolute most valuable things that you've given me so far working with you has been that branding, because I don't know if there are any other industries that the individuals know or ultimately come to know themselves so well from an outsider's perspective. For example, one thing that comes up for me all the time is quirky. It's like, what? Like, I had no idea that that was an adjective that many people that I don't even know me would ascribe to me. It's like, well, what? So the good, the bad, the ugly, the unusual, all these different adjectives and descriptors and essences that we carry. I mean, just that self knowledge of how we're perceived, even if our personality isn't necessarily in line with something, if we're perceived that way, then take it and run with it in terms of acting. I wonder if you wouldn't mind talking more about like essence, type, that umbrella you talk about.
Yeah, it's a visual medium. So whether we like it or not, we are immediately, perceived a certain way. And it's funny because people, I think Bunny Gillespie said that. She's like a pioneer in, I think, even the branding conversation. She has a great book called Self-Management for Actors, which I recommend for everybody. And I think she said, if you don't brand yourself, everyone else is branding you anyways. Everyone else, put it. So if you don't lean into it sooner and actually take advantage of it and actually have a business strategy around it, you're just going to miss out on, miss out on a career basically. But yeah, like the second I popped on screen, the second you popped on screen, an audience made a judgment immediately, right? How old we are, our marital status, our education, again, I talk with my hands a lot. I pretty straightforward. I talk fast, all these things. So
you're not even talking fast today. I'm like, wow, Anna can talk slowly.
I know. I am so tired, to be honest with you. That's probably what it is. I literally had, which is a blessing, but I got 2 major guest star auditions for the same episode, for the same show, but with the same deadline. So it was like 24 hours, a shit ton of material. And I found out I got a booking. Remember that show I was crying about? Like how, I don't know if you remember that story when I was yeah, I booked the supporting role. So
congratulations. The one that was more in line with your branding.
True. Well, right? I think this one, not so much it was even aligned. I think honestly, the casting director just really liked me and they wanted to give me something at that point, which leads me to it's so awesome. And it's a good reminder it was a good reminder for me and for all of us is that, and I think Jenna Fisher talks about it in her book, is that we don't need to make fans of everyone. Like if you have a couple of casting directors that are big fans of your work, you can have a whole career because of it. Jenna Fisher was called in, I think 30 or 40 times to that casting office, but wasn't booking anything, but they loved her so much and they knew that'd be a role that's super right for her. And, and then The Office came along and there's so many stories like that. And I think, again, they just really, really liked me. And the role that I got is small. And I'm sure everyone else could have, well, no, who knows, right? But I think what really helped me in this case is that they really loved what I did because I auditioned for that same show for a lead character, was pinned for a few months, and they got to see my work. So clearly they would probably know that I can do a smaller part, right? So basically, again, it leads to a targeted research, is that we don't need to target 100 people. Target 30, but that are really, really right for you. And meaning that, but yeah, this whole show is on brand for me. So yeah, so all of that,
Congratulations, Anna.
Okay, thank you. But that's why I'm just so tired, because I'm trying to figure out the shooting and the flight and all that other stuff. And so that's why I'm probably like, slowing down.
It's very convenient for us because we keep up.
Yeah, I know. I got that feedback a lot as I talk, especially when I get pumped up and fired up. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. So let me know if I do go 100 miles per hour.
Yeah, note for those who will reach out to Anna and do the complimentary session you mentioned, any coaching, just have your notes ready to roll, because as soon as she gets on Zoom, she's off.
So. Yeah, well, and usually, I send a follow-up email, and I record all the sessions, by the way. So if you need a recording to look back and all that other stuff, but don't worry, we're still, whenever I talk fast, we're still making sure that we're vibing, we're moving forward. So it's not just me talking at you, I hope.
No, it's so helpful. It's like, I don't think anybody crams any more into an hour than you. It's not possible.
That's what my goal. I think it's like the Russian in me. It's like, if I paid, I want to get like, I don't want to be talking about the weather for 30 minutes. It's like, let's go. We have an hour. Let's go. We're not here to, compliment each other for, so anyways.
I admire that.
So the complimentary sessions, I was super pumped about my client's success. Seriously, like booking the first TV for the first time, getting into Sundance, getting repped, all that stuff. And I'm like, how can I help more actors? And so once I graduated some of my clients, I'm like, I'm going to open up some complimentary sessions. I started it last year and I have some availability this coming March. So if you're an actor who doesn't know what the heck business of acting means, how to take your career to the next level, let's chat. Let's talk, right? All right, I'm done with the promo.
Do it. Do it. Just do it. Everybody ought to do it.
It's not going to hurt you. And even if you don't work with me further, like that hour will still give you a lot of tools and perspectives and kind of a roadmap of what to do from there. So
absolutely. They do decide to coach with you. They get to talk about branding and type and the people that you can represent in all your roles.
Really create a strategy for your career. Yeah, 100%. Even if you have representation, because a lot of times, a lot of my clients, once they have strategy sessions, they have very productive conversations then with an agent. Like one of my clients who, Jean, who is asked for a submission report and an agent said no, remember, and she's right now expanding to another market. We were thinking of dropping that agent. She now sends her a ton of auditions all of a sudden. And I'm like, you see how sometimes you just take control of your business and you ask, and then an agent immediately fires up. So again, that conversation wouldn't have happened if you didn't have a career strategy coach, right, who's, or a mentor who's just a little bit ahead of you, not someone who's winning an Oscar tomorrow, because it's way too much of a gap. An actor who's in the trenches with you, just a few steps ahead, that they can, I wish I had that. I literally spend thousands of dollars on scams because, well, at the time, I disfiguring. I want to give myself a lot of excuses, obviously, but I didn't do my research. That's a big part of it. And
I didn't know to, and most people don't know to, or even what to search, what steps to take, or how to figure out your types.
Oh yeah, and I did at that time, branding, like, what are you talking about? Let me get an agent, let me get auditions. But then everyone circles back to the idea of branding. To really sustain a longevity, like a long-term career, they always circle back to branding.
Well, and your branding changes, right? Like as you age, you develop more. You go from being college girl to maybe young wife to young mom to a more developed mom, like to more like everything.
Well, your type changes, right? Your type changes because of your physicality, exactly your age range, all of those things, long hair, short hair, all that determines it. But your branding is who you are at your core. It's your core essence. It's that umbrella that we've talked about. Basically, your branding is an umbrella and your types live within that umbrella. So your types could be as general as girl next door, mom, professional, but then the branding, the core, the essence of it determine what type. It's a quirky girl next door who's opinionated, who's straightforward, and who's blunt and, right? Or what type of professional, what type of mom. So, and who we are at our core, our energy, our essence doesn't change a ton. Like, for example, like, again, let's say I go to Netflix and I'm pitching a show and I say, hey, Matthew McConaughey or Nicole Kidman is attached to this project. You'll know exactly what they're bringing to the table. Probably the tone of the show, right? Because they have a very clearly defined brand. And a lot of times, if you think about even A-list celebrities, we go to see them for that. I was obsessed with Julia Roberts when I was younger. She's still one of my, I probably watched all of her movies, but it's like her little things that she does with her smile. And when she's upset, like she does this thing in a lot of her movies, it's similar reactions. And she's known as this sweetheart. Right now she's transitioning into more stronger, protective, the mother, more harsh, more bitchy. But for the longest time, she was like the American sweetheart. And there was a pattern in her branding, in her theme, and we fell in love with her for that. Yeah. Gone are the days where you bury yourself in the character. you find yourself within the character and you really show them who you are. Most of the time, casting directors say the number one note that they give actors: show me who you are. Show me how you would do it. Because every actor gets the script, and let's say it's a crying, hysterical scene, and everyone is trying to hysterically cry. One actor who chooses a different choice, not for the purpose of standing out, but just because they know their brand, they know that's not how they process pain. It immediately stands out. It immediately specific and interesting, right? We talked about a girl who booked a series regular role. I think it was on Big Sky, and so Big Skies, and the character description was calling for edgy, kind of street smart, deceitful, lying, manipulative, bitchy, or something like that. And so everyone, it was pre-pandemic, everyone in the waiting room wearing a leather jacket, like a choker, all these, like, tattoo, blah, blah, blah. And this girl's branding was a goody two-shoe, nice, clean cut, naive, innocent young woman. And so she was chosen to audition as a wild card. By wild card, it means that she doesn't quite fit the branding, but let's see what she brings to the table that might be different, right? That we haven't thought of. And she definitely did. Like, she, instead of leaning into the stereotype of let me be this tough girl, she did it her way. She brought her branding into it, right? And she was deceitful, lying, and manipulative, and a complete bitch, being a nice girl. And that was so interesting and so specific to who she is. So when she booked it, she asked the producer why, and they said, well, you did it Amy's way. Again, because she has a clearly defined brand. And especially if you're targeting large roles, you need to be likable, right? Or unlikable, but you need to be interesting enough. If you're blending in and you're taking your uniqueness away from the equation, like, bearing it in, you most likely not gonna, you're gonna be clerk number 3 for the rest of your career. So getting to know, so your core essence doesn't change and its core that much, but it's definitely true that your type can definitely shift around. So like Charlize Theron, she started with manipulative girl next door, not girl next door, like manipulative girlfriend, edgy, sexy. And then she won an Oscar for Monster, where she completely transformed herself. Once you're established in the industry and you're making money and people know you, you have the resources and you're able to actually pivot the industry's perceptive of you by maybe changing your physicality or certain essences about you. But at the core, we don't actually change that much.
That's so interesting. And what a freaking relief, I'd say, rather than just trying to, the idea of trying to fit yourself into all these different things, just bringing yourself and stripping away all those actory notions. Really, it's so simple. And the concept is actually so simple. I mean, not necessarily in practice or maybe once learned in practice, but
yeah.
I think we as actors get into our heads so much that we forget what we're actually there to do. And it's just to be and to tell a story authentically.
And it's hard to just be, because a lot of times we act in life. A lot of times, we don't know who we actually are in life because we're putting on a face. And, like, speaking of, I think in this culture in general, like, like, hi, like, we're not showing up pain. We're like, everything's great, but everyone's terrified, so it's like really bringing your truth and knowing who you are. That honestly is where it starts, right? And when we do branding, right, I don't just assign it to you. We collect information, and we continue to collect information. It's perception piece is one of it that we need to collect, right? But it's also understanding who you are. You are bringing the way you deal with, my client Jean, again, she never screams in real life. She never raises her voice. So whenever she acts and it's a scene, like high stakes scene where she needs to yell, it just doesn't coming out of her mouth authentically. So I'm like, okay, how can we bring your authenticity to it? Now, a lot of actors are like, they've trained for years and they're like, no, I'm a good actor and I want to show my range. And if you're everywhere, you're nowhere. You're confusing your buyers. You really need to niche down and be specific, right? So that they understand exactly what to do with you, because casting works so freaking fast. They're not looking for good actors. They're looking for a specific actor to fill this role right now. I'm looking for a bubbly brunette, with a weird whatever, or whatever, right? So, where was I with this? So yeah, but a lot of actors who've trained a lot and they really resist the idea of branding and the idea of being themselves in the roles. And you still got to remember, it's still a heightened version of you, right? Like you can play a killer, but I'm sure that's why I think what a lot of actors actually fell in love with acting in the first place is that we get to be these different people, right?
Yeah.
But I think we have all these different people inside of us.
Yeah.
If you put us
in different contexts.
Right. If
Which
you put
is so much more interesting to me.
Exactly. It's like, well, psychology, like people who really study psychology understand self-aware, they go really far in this business. So I would say really learning about psychology and learning what triggers you have. Because like, how can you play anyone else if you don't know who the F you are, right?
You can swear. Yeah.
Who the fuck you are, right? So you need to learn that first. And it's an ongoing journey, but it's a heightened, it's different people within you. So like if someone was to kill my child, something was to, I would kill someone probably. If someone was to, am I a killer? No. But if I was to put in the right circumstance or something was to happen, right? So it's like, and it's much more interesting to see how Anastasia would do it in her circumstance versus my idea of a killer.
I was just gonna say, I think part of this journey of learning who you are and getting specific on who you actually are, as well as how you're perceived. I think especially with like pursuing headshots, like our first few headshot sessions miss the mark so much because of who we want to be, how we want to be perceived. And like, well, I'm nice, right? I'm a kind person. I'm friendly to everybody, right? Or like, whatever we tell ourselves. Maybe that's not actually true. And that trying to play our idea of ourselves or our idealized notion of who we wish we were more like, maybe we're less judgmental or something. But if you're real judgy or you come across judgy, then maybe lean into that and see what roles you get and you get to play.
Yeah.
Like it's fun to play the villain,
Yeah, most actors get great headshots so they can get a compliment from their mom or their friend or their boyfriend, like, right? And here's the thing, that headshot might get you in the door, right? You might get an audition, but then they see the self-tape, who you are at your essence and at your core, and that doesn't lie.
Yeah.
This little thing, it doesn't lie. It stares into your soul, your energy gets picked up, everything else. And so if I'm a casting director and I have a deadline and I have thousands of submissions and you get chosen for the role, because remember, they get thousands, they choose maybe 50 to audition. Like in television, it's 30 or less per role to audition. And I pick you because based on the headshot, because I think you can fit this role. And then I see a self-tape and it's complete 180. You wasted my time. I'm pissed. Like you wasted my time. You misled me in your messaging. Yeah. You misled me in your marketing. You misled me in your branding. So a lot of actors wonder, well, how come they don't have a career? Either they can't get in the door or they get in the door and they don't book. Well, no wonder, right? So it all comes, that's why I always tell actors, don't even worry about building a package until you know what you're selling. And obviously you got to put it into test, meaning that just because we've talked about it and we developed the strategy, if you don't test it out, meaning you don't self-submit and you start getting out there, applying what we've talked about, it's just going to be a theory. So based on the feedback that you received, you might course correct. And that might change things, right? And but you got to start with with as much specificity as possible. And part of it is also getting comfortable in front of the camera, right? A lot of actors get 300 different outfits with the same exact expressions, or they trying to be too out there. Yeah, so it's like, also, even when we get clarity on branding, I noticed that actors who get their headshots second time around, third time around are a lot more on point because they just really know how to then bring that essence without still trying to put anything on.
Yeah, it's, and you brought up self-submission. It's come to my attention recently that some of my friends are a bit squeamish about self-submission, and I never have been, but I wonder if you wouldn't mind talking about the importance of self-submission and what websites are key to use and just a little bit about that.
Yeah. you need to expand your resume. The more you expand your resume, the easier it is for your agents to sell you, for casting directors to say yes to you. Because when I see 7 films under your belt, and you don't need to specify they're a student or they're short films. In general, if I see 7 films, I'm much more likely to trust you with a co-star or a guest star on a television show versus if you killed your auditions, but I see 0 film credits on your resume, right? Also, you need to be living and breathing, and like living on sets. No matter how big or small, you need to know close up, medium shot, master shot, the props, you need to, so that when you get on a professional high paying gig, this is not your first time around. So that's another reason. Another part is like networking. You know, the part of this industry, like we talked about, my friend auditioned for this film. It was a feature film, got a call back. She had to fly out to Atlanta from Texas for a call back. While she's on her flight, an agent's calling her and basically telling her, hey, they changed their mind. They're going with in a different direction, basically. But hey, she was a great agent. She's like, I still told them that they need to see you. So they gave you that 7-page script to memorize in an hour. Just basically, they gave her a grace to audition for something that, long story short, she auditioned, she killed it. She did a great job. A year or 2 later, she gets an audition from that same casting director, and it's a little film called Suicide Squad, and she booked it. So with that said, is that you never know when a certain opportunity leads to another opportunity. This student filmmaker can be the next episodic director, right? What I'm trying to say is that there's I would say probably maybe, I don't know, 70-30. I would say 70% of directors and filmmakers work with the same actors again and again and again. That's why we see it in movies. I mean, come on, we see the same actors all the time, right? Yeah. Not only because they're bookable and they have a name and they have price attached to them, but it's also because, you know, they know, like, and it's a know, like, and trust factor, right? Like, right. You like working with me, you will continue working with me. You will refer more people working. It's a business. It's a relationship type business.
Yeah, absolutely. And go ahead.
No. So just to summarize again, so it's for expansion of your resume that would only help you and your reps. It's for networking, and it's for experience. And that's probably just off the top of my head. There's so many more reasons why, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, just seeing how the shots work. And I would venture to say that getting some background work in on big fancy productions has been invaluable to me for the same reason. Getting to be up close and personal. That last one I did in Georgia, I got to be so close to the first team, the principal actors, and I got to watch what they were doing and just see how did they frame it up? How did they do all the different angles? How, like, it's just observing and taking that in is brilliant.
But also taking in how long it takes, right? Like the time.
Oh my God, like, that's another thing. Yeah. Like, people go on set, especially, I'm going to do a video at some point about the life of a background person and like what to expect, how to have success, like bringing hand warmers. No, but I'm kidding, sort of. But just like what to expect and how to behave and how not to behave, because you see it all. You see the whole thing, the full gamut of behavior. And, you know, I always meet interesting people who have led me to new connections, even just doing background. So,
and the wait is long, even for principal actors. And right now we're isolated because of COVID everywhere. So, like, you know, and how technical it is. I used to think, oh my God, movie acting is much easier because you're actually on location. You actually have props. No, you have a camera staring at you like this. You have a director, you have a boom mic, you have 10, 15 people. I remember it was like a romantic film, got into a lot of festivals in LA. It was a great little indie project, but it was, you know, heartfelt project. And anyways, it was a bedroom scene. We were, you know, kissing and everything else. And it was an intimate moment between the two of us. And there were like at least 10 people like right around us. And we had to do it over and over from this angle. And the cameras, there's so much. I remember when I did Chicago Fire and it was a crying moment. and they did a master shot, right? So they didn't even get to my close-up, and I kept giving and giving the emotion, and by the time it got to my close-up, I was exhausted. I could barely get an emotion out of me. So again, it's like you learn so much by being present on the set and networking. With background, the only thing I would be careful of is that if it's a TV series, like a running TV series, if you do too much background and if you're a scene, you might cut yourself out of actual principal audition opportunities. Yeah, so I would do it. I would definitely recommend doing it for actors who never ever set their foot on an audition set and looking for an agent. Hell no. Go get, you might hate it. Yeah. You might be like, is this how I want my life to look like? No, right? You might, and then find some, so it's a great eye-opening experience as to how it's done.
I also love that you can see, oh no, hold on. Oh my God, kittens are so problematic.
Oh, no, same with kids.
She's like a little child. You're literally a child. Oh,
my 2-year-old keeps getting complaints.
Oh my God.
Her stare just kills me every time.
His tummy. Yeah, it's a tummy. Oh my God. Anyways, at least, you know, when you're there and you're observing, you can see where the principles are, and you can look and say, is that what I want? Like you said, is that what I want? To be able to look and say, well, background is not very much fun. It's long, it's freezing, or it's hot, you're hungry, but like if you're a principal actor, that might get a little bit better, and you might have a little bit more control. So you can, I think the power of visualization and being able to look at what you want and say, right, that's my goal, to get to that point where I've got the trailer and I've got some agency. I love that, like Anya Taylor-Joy in The Queen's Gambit, for example, got to weigh in on the hair color of her character. I love that. I love that she got to be part of the creative process. How awesome would that be to get to the point where you get to really be part of like the storytelling in the creation phase? Like,
yeah. And I see, like, with, you know, with episodic television, they have different directors for different episodes usually. And a lot of times those directors really focusing on directing primarily supporting cast, because series regulars, they know their character so well that they sometimes tell the director what their character would do and wouldn't do. Yeah. But, you know, to get to the point, you know, it takes a lot of flexibility, and it takes a lot of stamina, right? It's just like, it's all about the like to sustain a long-term career. You need to get clear on what you want, and knowing how, and have like a strategy of how you, even if you don't get to that specific thing, you, like, for example, my goal was for this year to book this show. Now my thinking was to book the show for this other role, right? So sometimes it's just like, or
that's the way it works sometimes, though.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you don't book the show, or you book that same network. Let's say it's NBC or CW, or you get, but my mentor used to say, and I really love that quote, momentum demands movement. You need to be moving forward to gain momentum in your career. So like, if I wasn't to expand my representation to Los Angeles, I wouldn't have even gotten that audition. If I wasn't to, you know, if I wasn't to get clarity on my brand, I wouldn't have gotten that audition for that specific show, because I had that conversation with my agent as to what I'm trying to target. If I, you know, all these things, it's like, I used to think that, you know, the most talented actors gets the opportunity, or you're going to be discovered. Things are going to just come to you if people will see how talented you are. But like, what I found out in this industry is that it all falls onto you. It really all comes down to you. You are the CEO of your business. How much time do you spend on your business, right? And there are three aspects to that: the mindset, the craft, and the business, right? I always say that.
I was going to ask you to talk about mindset, actually.
Mindset is number one, because you can be the best actor in the world. You can be working all the time, auditioning all the time, and hating every second of it, right? And we all think like, oh, once we get that, like I thought, if I get this, I feel tired. I feel worried. I don't feel, we think, right? We always think, if we get this, we're going to feel a certain way, blah, blah, blah. And it's not the case. So so, and a lot of times actors, I've done that to myself. I would self-sabotage. I get this big audition, I will start getting in my head, oh, they're probably going to go with a name actor for this. Oh, I'm not right for this. Oh shit, like, am I good enough, or whatever, right? Like this never stops, this cycle. So I guess what it comes down to is like, do you want to enjoy your career or do you want to hate your career? And it all comes down to how much you take care of your mindset. And the way you take care of it, it looks different for everyone else, for everybody, right? Just the general self-care, like, you know, with me having kids, obviously my self-care looks different because I also have another life to attend to. And so that I know that if I don't fill up my own tank, I can't pour into my family, I can pour into my business, I can pour into my career. And so sometimes actors, and I think you're like a hustler, like go, 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 right, as well. But we need to find the time and like schedule it in. It's like, I don't know, calendar, whatever, where we find the time just for ourselves. And no matter how it looks like, it could be taking a bath, it could be reading a book, it could be meeting with a friend, it could be meditate, it could be not, right? Meditation has been extremely powerful for me, and specifically because, especially when I was pregnant, I remember it really helped me. And even during, not to get too graphic here, but even during giving birth, I was able to literally like step, you know, because when you're in pain, you know, primal instincts kick in, right? And you're scared of the next pain. But when you're able to just kind of step outside of yourself and observe yourself versus be consumed in it, it's super powerful. Anyways, I'm not like a big meditative genius here, but I think with self-care, just really paying attention to my own voice. Like,
I love that. I love the separation that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like, even like when I get an audition and I get nervous and I'm stepping outside of myself, I'm like, is this true right now, what I'm feeling? Or is this I'm getting in my head? So like being able to, and just paying attention to myself. If I'm really, really overwhelmed, maybe pushing through is not the best way, right? Sometimes self-care is to just leave acting for a little bit.
Well, and that reminded me of something that Mark McCullough, is that how we say his last name?
McCullough.
Okay.
One thing that Mark, William Mark. Mm-hmm.
One thing that Mark was saying in the group coaching, because Anna does group coaching too, the group coaching, when he was a guest, talking about separation in a sense of like when he used to go in the audition room, he would hope that the role would go to whoever needed it the most. And I just love that degree of separation, because it's wanting it, not needing it. And it's understanding that like whoever will get the role should be whoever is meant for the role. And like, there are always going to be more roles for you. And like how, I'm trying to think, Matthew Del Negro, I want to say, who wrote 10,000 No's. Do you know that book?
No, his name sounds very familiar, but
he was on The Sopranos. I believe it was Matthew Del Negro who was saying that like there was one gig that he tested for, but then didn't get, but if he had booked that, he wouldn't have gotten The Sopranos or whatever other, I think it was The Sopranos, but you know, it's like this mindset piece of, like you said, the longevity, the marathon, not the sprint, just this separation, or what sometimes people might call taking a higher perspective, backing up and saying like, okay, this isn't the end of the world. This isn't about, am I a good enough actor, this and that. It's just like, calm. Yeah. There will always be more opportunities.
Yeah, because you know there's no shortage of opportunities for sure, actors as well, but it's the idea of getting specific results and putting pressure on yourself to be somewhere within a certain amount of time, or with a certain amount of things on your list. I used to be like that, and you know, and I think it's easy to be that way in your young 20s, right? Not to like age myself here, but I think because you know, you have nothing to lose. You have no other, like, as you know, with having a child and having a family, not everything becomes about acting anymore. And so
it shouldn't be, right? We need to be people outside of acting. We have other things we're doing.
And that's the weirdest part, is like when you actually don't make it all about acting, you start working, because you take that, it may not even be desperation, but the idea of like, oh, I want to book this. Oh, I want to get this. And if I don't get this, then what I found is that you didn't book it for a reason. There's something else there for you. And the idea is like, how do you sustain it? How do you sustain that mental game where you're able to bounce back and you're able to enjoy the journey no matter, right? So, I think part of it is just support system. Again, number one, accountability, number two, so you still feel like you're moving forward. Paying attention. Do you still love it? Do you still want to do this? Sometimes we're doing something just out of, automatic.
Expectation.
Expectation. And also find another way to fulfill yourself. Financially, preferably, or I have a lot of actors who just want to quit their day job and like they think there's there are series regulars who work for a few years and then can never pick up another show again for years. So like this career, it's like, I think a lot of actors think, and Audrey Moore talks about it a lot, it's like once you do this, then it's gonna like go skyrocket from there, and it's gonna be like this for a while. And so how do you make it not just bearable but enjoyable? And I think part of it is really taking pressure off of yourself, surrounding yourself with the right people, finding something else outside of acting that fulfills you, and acting is not your everything and anything, and you also become a better actor. Right.
For sure. Have you heard of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron? I just started it on Saturday. Speaking of taking time for oneself, for those who might need a more structured approach, I've got like cat hair flying everywhere. I'm at cat sitting right now, so that's why we have constant cats. But Julia Cameron's book is like a 12-week course. Have you done it?
I read it was a while ago though, so like I can't, but I know it's like one of the best.
It's pretty amazing. Like I woke up this morning pretty early and then I went back to sleep, but I woke up and my mind was like do of like negative, like just churning. And I really wanted to do what she calls the morning pages, but I didn't have my notebook with me. And the morning pages are a thing that you do every single morning. You write for 3 pages, just dumping whatever is in your brain out on the page. And then you don't even look at it again for months. And it is amazing how any negativity you start out with, for me, it always turns positive in these always in these last few days, that is. That would be something I would recommend to people.
Brain dump, for sure. What I do is video journaling. So I'm too lazy to write. I heard Beyonce did that, so I'm like, okay, I'm not I'm not the crazy person. But basically what it is kind of like vlogging, but you're not publicly releasing it. I have a video journal where once a month, or depending, I literally talk to myself, and I just basically talk about how I'm feeling, what's going on. It takes, there's no one structure, but it's interesting because when I look back at it, because I'm too lazy to write sometimes, so speaking to me is easier. And it's easy. It's interesting because when I look back at it, just seeing my thought pattern of, oh, I keep bringing this up, but I'm not doing anything about it, or why am I keep doing this? Like, oh wow, this is really bothering me. Like it's like self-analysis almost. It's like you're your own little project, but not as a band. But also like I've been doing it for a few years now. It's also really cool looking back at it. It's like when I was pregnant, when I first met my husband, I had a video vlog. It was it's maybe someday I will pile it together and just give it to my kids. I don't know if they would care for it.
You could. That would be really interesting.
It's like a story of it's like you're videotaping literally a story of your life. And it's not like I'm videotaping it at certain like, oh, look at me, I'm at the waterfall. Like, no, it's literally just me like having a therapy session with myself. But if what therapy really is just like you able to talk it out. And therapy, by the way, huge. I find that, actors who go to therapy have a lot of momentum in their career.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, and Audrey Moore talks about a lot of self-care things. Something that just occurred to me to ask about was the union. It sounds like the union has so many resources, even to would you recommend reaching out before you're part of the union and getting information? Or because I feel like Audrey does mention that. Would you have any advice about how to, I don't know, approach the union? I guess thinking about the union, it just seems like this really far off thing. And they say, don't join it too early if you're in a smaller market, because then you'll be up against people who are seasoned and have a lot of things on their resume and everything else. But she says to approach or like participate in their like annual event, like maybe it's a Zoom event now, and just listen to the policy that they're doing. I mean, the thing with the commercials being SAG. What's your take on that, of like non-union participation, or at least observation of the union, assuming we are planning on joining one day?
Yeah. Well, the goal is to be union, right? Every single actor that you see working in television and film are a SAG-AFTRA, union actor in the States. And so sooner or later, you're going to be joining. So why not learn about it in advance and just be educated on the topic and actually make, educated decisions. So 100%, but also it's like also like attracting it into your life, right? The more you kind of part of it, the more you're getting to know people. So 100%, I mean, primarily their resources are targeted towards SAG actors, but they do have annual events. They also have those pop-up workshops sometimes, I think might be free, where they invite industry people and they talk about union rules and things like that. So I would subscribe to their newsletter. I would definitely follow them on social media, and there are also local offices, so not just like the general big ones. Like Chicago one, I remember they used to have a video self-tape setup studio where you can come in for free and tape there. They have an audio studio where you can just do a voiceover for free. That was at the time before the pre-pandemic, so it was barely like, it was always empty. And I was at the time signed in Southeast in Atlanta, and still am, but a lot of Southeast are only self-tape. So I was introduced to self-tapes kind of earlier, and I would always utilize their office. They also have just so many, they have free classes, like there's so much. They're actually trying to now make it so that as union actors don't have to pay for casting sites. IMDb Pro gives you a discount. There is another, they already have it. It's like a casting site of its own for SAG actors that productions can go to and only book SAG actors. But the thing with SAG actors is that they're not very tech savvy. Like the tech is really something that they need to invest in more, like even with their residual system and everything else. But basically, 100% educate yourself, 100% get involved to the best of your ability. The goal is to get in the union, and you will, and you'll be surprised. Like there's really no, oh, it's like this lengthy thing. Like the first thing I booked was the TV series that got me eligibility. And then there's some people, so what, not to say that you never know, you actually might get eligibility sooner than you think, but there has to be also strategy for it, right? Yeah. But when you join or if you join, it's all depends on your individual circumstance, based on your goals, based on the market, again, that you're targeting, right? Like we've addressed before, like Southeast, they don't care for union. LA is very much union. So it will actually help you to be union there faster. Chicago doesn't really care. So you know what I mean? So it's like, which market you're targeting, which market does your brand belong in as you're expanding? And if you do have an opportunity to be joining, you base the decision on that.
Let me ask you, can we talk about one more topic? The topic of how the industry has changed since before the pandemic. I mean, self-tapes, as you mentioned a minute ago, have exploded. It used to be, as you know, Jenna Fisher, Matthew McConaughey, they all went, as they say in their books, I reference them because of their books, which I've read and listened to, highly recommend. They make the trek to LA and do their best to set up there. Matthew got a really fast start. Jenna, as you said earlier as well, like it was a grind, and as it is for most people who've been doing it for 20 years, they might be working actors but barely scraping by. I want to say before the pandemic, if I had started acting then, my life would have been very different. And now with self-tapes everywhere, I can audition for projects in New York, in Chicago, anything I'm willing to drive to. And that's huge, I think.
Yes.
A lot of us. And I just wonder if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about that and how maybe the dream of having success as an actor might actually be more plausible for those of us who don't live in LA or in New York specifically.
Yes, it opened up a lot of opportunities, but it also means that it opened up a lot of opportunities for a lot of actors, right?
Yeah.
So,
including some of us.
exactly. And so, you know, Claire Simon, who does Chicago Fire and PD casting, she used to see 5 people per role. Right now, they see unlimited, I think, well, 30, 40 tapes at least per role, right? So is it good? Yes, for actors outside of the market. Is it good for actors inside of the market? They're pissed. Same goes for every individual market. Like LA, my LA agent was like really upset with casting when they opened up doors for a lot of actors outside of Los Angeles, because she was like, guys, you haven't seen half of the people in LA. Why are you looking in Timbuktu, you know? So with that said, you still gotta be mindful of, again, not just stacking up agents everywhere and anywhere, but again, the markets that you can realistically work in, the markets that you really want to be working in. And like, hey, like, let's be honest, of course it's great, right? Like, again, I am not in, right, like I'm represented in LA, I'm represented in Chicago, I'm represented in Atlanta, I'm expanding right now to other markets, and I'm not locally in those markets anymore. So did it open doors? Hell yes. Did it then, but did it also create a conversation of, okay, which market can I realistically get to, how fast? Like, for example, so I just booked something that's filming in LA, right? I have to be there at least, well, if 40, you have to test for COVID in 48 hours prior to wardrobe fitting. On location there, then the wardrobe fitting, then they don't really usually give you the exact date of the shoot, they give you like approximate range, so you can be in that location anywhere between 7 to 10 days possibly. Yeah. So if you claim that you are locally there, but you cannot be there, hang out there for 10 days and support yourself there for 10 days, you're going to be putting production, you know, in trouble. You're going to be putting your agent in trouble, everyone else. It's all going downhill, right? You know, sometimes COVID tests can be the same day. So like, if you can fly yourself out, how fast can you fly yourself out? A lot of actors, it's like with anything, right? So a lot of actors, they hope for an opportunity, but when an opportunity comes, they're not ready for it, right? Like we want to be a series regular, but realistically, it's like you start your day at 6 a.m., you finish it at like late at night, and that's 5 days a week. You have a shit ton of script, a lot of pressure on you, all that stuff, right? Like yesterday, I must have emailed you. Yeah, like I said, 2 guest star auditions for the same episode with the same deadline in 24 hours with a lot of memorization, right? I have to the reader, figure out the kids, all of that, right? So actors need to really prepare. If they claiming they can be everywhere, they need to really prepare themselves financially. They need to prepare themselves with support system who's going to take care of, I don't know, their cat, their child, whatever, their job, right? So all of that needs to be taken care of, speaking of self-care, before you seek out an opportunity, right? Same with going to a class. Like, you don't go to a teacher once you get an audition. You are in class, and once you get an audition, you're taking it to the next level, right? So figuring out which markets you actually say yes to, which markets you can be local hire in, and which markets you can also, your brand really fits into, should be a consideration when you're applying everywhere and ever, because not everyone's gonna fly you out, especially if you're an actor who doesn't have a lot of credits. They're not gonna just buy you a ticket, because again, if they have plenty of actors in LA, New York with bigger resumes than you, why would they do that, right? Unless, again, your branding is super duper specific and you killed an audition tape. But even then, I guarantee you, there's always going to be someone better looking than you, smarter than you, more talented than you, more trained than you, right? So thinking that you're the one and only is a myth. So did it open opportunity? Yes. Did it open opportunity to a lot more actors, and did it actually hurt some of the local markets? Yes. If you say yes to certain markets, make sure that you can actually get yourself there. And also there's the question as to how transparent you are with representation in those markets. And that's a whole other topic for a whole other day, is that some actors tell the truth and they are having a really hard time getting signed. Some people tell the truth, but the way they present it. And again, if you lean with this, let's say if you, like, for example, an agent in New York was interested in you because you led with your special skill. And so special skills and clear branding, your two best friends when you're expanding to other markets with a small resume. Yeah, so there are a lot. So yes, I don't think self-tapes are going anywhere. I think we're going to have more of a hybrid situation where the callbacks are going to be more in person. Commercials are starting to become more in person. And some casting directors do like that connection with an actor where they can give you a note and, you know, and they can change things up versus requesting in another tape. And also, you know, a self-tape, it opened a lot of doors, but it also, there's so many things about it because first of all, it's a lot of pressure on actors to become an editor now, videographer, all that stuff. We also have access, we become control freaks, right? And we do 30, 40 bajillion takes. And that's not how many takes we usually get on set. And so that's my other point, is that if you've never been on a professional set and you did a self-tape and that was your 100th take and lucky one got chosen, and then you got on set and you don't know what the heck to do, you can lose a job. And so a lot of times actors knew how to take care of the nerves and the pressure because we were going in person, and we don't have that to deal with anymore with the self-tape.
I think that's absolutely true. I also think that there's a different pressure with self-taping, because even last night I submitted a tape, and as soon as I don't usually do this, but as soon as I submitted it, I was like, shoot, could I have done that better? Could I have been more? And I stopped myself and I was like, no, we audition and we forget. That's our policy around here. But yeah, I've had my first few in-person auditions in the new year, and it's been different every time and unexpected circumstances every time. But it's weird, like I feel a totally different pressure. And it was actually fine. It's like, I actually kind of like being in the room because you get to talk to them and say hi to them and take direction. I love getting direction. It's like, it's just interesting having only done self-tapes until January and then having done several of these in-person ones. It's like,
And being able to take direction, you know, that's another thing, is like you do a self-tape, you book a job, and then the director gives you a redirect, and then you're like, whoa, you're freaking out. And a lot of times they change scripts on you, like the projects that I booked, the script is different from the one that I self-taped for. And you know, like we always gonna think we can do better. There's always something we're gonna hate, or I twitched, or blah, 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 blah. Literally the tape that I sent out, I was bitter about it because they didn't give me the lead role. They gave me the audition right back before I booked it. So I was like, oh, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna do it. I didn't care for it. And of course that's the one that you book, right? So it always like that. It's the one that you obsess over and you think, oh my God, like you don't book. The one that you have a few takes and you do your best version and you let go.
That's what happens. Yeah.
So and it's a pattern. It's not like, as a career coach, I always tell actors, right, you know, is that take what resonates with you, leave the rest behind. There's no one set rule. There's no, the rule in this industry is that there are no rules. So anyone who tells you this is the way is BS, right? So with that said, I just lost my train of thought. Like where was I going? BS. Yeah, BS is like, no one tells you that. So the thing that I pay attention to as a career coach is the patterns. What has worked for most actors in a variety of different markets? I have clients from 14 to 70, you know, that's what matters to me, is the patterns. And that's what I coach on. That's what I focus on in my business strategy, is that, and the pattern for a lot of actors in terms of the craft is that when they don't over obsess and let go and do their best, that usually comes back to them, either with a callback or booking or something. The ones that I booked have usually been done in a few takes. The one that I do bajillion takes on typically never books.
Well, that, and by the time you've made so many different takes, it's like I can't even tell what's good anymore.
And it's all the same.
If any of them are good.
Not you're completely, you're so exhausted, and you're doing on your 30th take, you do the same thing you did on your second or third. You're just like,
but just not as good.
exactly, not as alive. And so I'm all for self tapes, but it's not just all great sunshine and rainbows. It has other sides to it, we need to consider.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, Anna, this has been absolutely brilliant. I really hope that some of the viewers will reach out to you and do a consultation, work with you. It's been invaluable. I mean, I love Jen Sincera, who I've probably mentioned before, the author of You Are a Badass and the whole series. She talks about, if you're really serious, get yourself a coach. And I thought, well, I know a lot of actors and like acting technique coaches, and I just kind of put it out there to the universe. I guess if I'm supposed to work with a coach, bring me the right person. And not very, maybe a month after that, you showed up. So thank you.
I believe in that, the intention. Mm-hmm.
Oh, big time. Setting intentions, writing it down, thinking about it, visualizing what that's going to be like. And that's another reason why being on sets and being able to visualize what it will be like being a series regular or being a principal something or other, just if you don't know what it looks like, how are you supposed to visualize it? So is there anything, before we get off the call today, is there anything else that you would like to share with the new acting community?
There's
final advice.
There's so much. I just, won't shut up about it. But what you said is really, I want to speak to that for a second, is that you can't Instagram your way into career, meaning like you're going to watch this little reel or you're going to watch this little thing and you're going to like learn about the business, or like if you really want to have a sustainable career, you want to have like some kind of professional guidance on a consistent basis, whether it doesn't have to be, find the mentor that's right for you, right? That vibes with you, that you like the energy and everything else, because I'm not going to be the right fit for everybody and you know what I mean? So but it could be even an actor who's just so that's very crucial. But the big thing is what I want to probably leave people behind, since we leave with, or I don't know how to, my brain is shutting down. What I want to say, like, since we talked so much about branding, is this is not the industry where you ask them who you are and do you like me or not. This is an industry where you tell them who you are, whether they like it or not, right? So it comes down to, again, the self-worth conversation. That's an ongoing conversation. But I think Brene Brown I love Brene Brown, and she has said, it's like, I know who I am and I'm not going to negotiate that with you, because then I may fit in for you, but I no longer belong to myself. And I think a lot of actors trying to be butt kissers, people pleasers. Am I worthy? Am I good enough? Do you like me? You think I'm stop that, right? Yeah. Know who you are, know your worth, know what you bring to the table, explore that, keep learning it, keep get better at it, and lead with that. Because that's when the opportunity comes to you, because you're going to be a full magnetic human being that's just, it's like they always say confident books, but what is confidence? What the heck is confidence? Sometimes you feel horrified. We never feel always confident, but I think what it comes down to is really just knowing yourself and being unapologetically yourself. And
that's brilliant.
That's it.
That's brilliant. And one thing you said earlier was, we daydream about being a series regular, and then when we book it, we're not prepared necessarily. But maybe part of that mindset piece, it's like they say, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. And part of that, maybe most of that preparation, is that mindset, knowing yourself, bringing your unapologetic self to the table, so that when you do get that opportunity, that luck becomes. But
also not relying on luck, right? Like, it's like fame chooses you, right? Someone said fame doesn't, you don't choose fame, fame chooses you. But your goal would be, or I want to work with people whose goal is to become a consistently working actor, not to become a vanity, like a star, right? So so for that, you need to have a strategy. So that you're not just hoping and wishing on luck, you're preparing for it and you're working towards it. Yeah, 100%. This
Amazing.
was fun.
Thank you so much, Anna.
You're
I
very
really
welcome.
appreciate it. I'm going to link all of your information below, and I can't thank you enough.
You're very welcome. This was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that you're doing this because this is so beneficial for, our tribe, our community, our industry, and we all can learn from one another, no matter which stage we're on. So keep on doing you and keep on doing what you're doing, and we'll talk very soon together one-on-one. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And go get some rest. You
I
just
have to tape. I can't have to tape.
Congratulations.
Circle. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Anna was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. She always is. Since I began working with Anna, I have gotten really specific on my branding, specifically my essence umbrella, which she mentions, and the types that I currently can play and fit into, and just how my essence interacts with that. It's astounding to me. Ever since figuring that out and getting specific on what my product is and what I have to offer, the auditions I've been getting, specifically through self-submission, Actors Access, but also through agencies, is just like everything has been on type. It's like, wait, what? All these things before, I would have to look back at my audition log, which is something that we don't get to in this interview, but something that it's covered in cat hair. Something I'd like to mention is I've started, since doing acting business stuff, I've started keeping an audition log, and I mark something off. Yellow is that I booked it, but I put commercial in the corner or film in the corner. It's a little messy, but it's got everything I need on there. It's got where the audition came from, what the role is, who the producer is, who the director is, writer, casting director, because something that I think would be good for us to realize perspective wise is the people, even the student filmmakers that we're working with through Backstage or Actors Access or local Facebook pages. Those were the Scorseses and the Tarantinos and the whoever, insert name here. All those people were beginning actors, were beginning directors, were beginning writers, and keeping track of who sees us and who has seen us over years. Maybe I auditioned for Chicago and Claire Simon sees me in this and I don't hear anything. And then Claire Simon sees me in this other thing and I don't hear anything. By the third time I put myself in front of Claire Simon, I'll know that she's seen me. She's just an example, multiple times. And maybe that's the time that I get a call back or whoever the big casting directors are in your region. It's just, I think, important to have that perspective piece and just to do your bookkeeping. And that way you can calculate your booking ratio and figure out in this industry or like this market, I guess is what I was looking for. In the Chicago market, my booking ratio is whatever it is. I also think that keeping track month to month is a really good way to keep track of your auditions, but to be able to say when you feel like you're having a dry spell and you're like, oh man, like it seems like it's been ages since I've gotten an audition. If you have your numbers sorted out, you can look at that ratio and say, actually, it's only the 5th of the month and I have already gotten the same number of auditions that I got in the entire previous month, and say, I'm fine, calm down. So again, all of her stuff's below. If you like content like this, please do reach out to me via email, or those of you who have my phone number, my website's down below. Anybody that you would recommend, anybody who you think would be helpful for those of us who are starting out or those of us who have been doing it for a while, any industry professionals, actors, coaches, casting directors, any books that you would recommend that I read and maybe bring on the author. I have a few people up my sleeve there. So I hope you took a lot from this. I know I always take lots from Anna, and go forth and conquer. Until next time.